There's so many options with a robe.
No, they suck. I hate them. There's two kinds of people in this world.
Oh,
Those
you
who love robes.
divide the world straight in half and start arguments. Dictators would surrender their thrones. I've been fighting for this robe lifestyle.
And if you like robes, you probably like slippers too.
Generally, they go hand in hand.
All right, how'd the weekend go?
It was great.
Was it?
Yeah, are we starting?
Yeah.
This is how you start the podcast?
Sure.
You just asked. Okay, so if we're starting, let me just say this.
So many words.
Let me just stop. Well, here's the problem. People need to know some things. This is what I'm convinced of. People need to know that you need a second podcast that's like, before we get started.
Oh,
that's
yeah?
the name of the podcast. And it's all the stuff that happens before you record the podcast.
Which is a lot.
Which is so much great stuff. I'm just sitting here, this whole conversation that we're having as people are getting ready to start the podcast
Robes,
and stuff, just going,
He-Man.
We're talking about like things that would change people's lives.
Underoos.
Oh man, I'm just telling you, this is like,
All of that came up before we started rolling.
And then you go, let's just talk about theology or the Bible. And I'm just thinking, you're missing all the great stuff. This is awesome. I just want to hang out in here and have this conversation all day. This is great.
Yeah. Well,
So
maybe.
what was your question? Sorry.
How did it go?
It was great. It was honestly a really great weekend. And I love where our church is at. Our churches are at. And I love the overall just spirit of this series. Not because I think there's something this groundswell or this earthquake that's happening when you say we're going to study through the book of James. It's like but I think when people are genuinely seeking God and they want to follow Jesus, and you start getting into this letter that's to them, to people that are trying to follow Jesus, especially I think the context of James for modern Christians. I think I underestimated how powerful it is.
Yeah.
For people to go, I'm kind of like the people this letter was written to. The people the letter was written to were first-generation Christians. They didn't have Christian grandmas or grandpas. There was no Christian radio or movies or music. They just met Jesus, and then they moved. And it's like, what do we do? How do we live? How do we live our life? And this radical miracle happened to me, and I'm trying to raise a family, and I have a job, and I'm trying to figure out life. How do I do this? And then James goes,
Have you been bringing all of that kind of context into the way? Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I haven't, but that's good.
So maybe, anyway, I just think it's real for people.
Yeah.
Regardless of, I think even, a massive buildup of the context. I think when you sit down and read it, and you go,
it's cool.
This is me. This is real. This is life. And that's why I love that about James.
I'm with you. I've been struck by how the response we've gotten from folks, that the eagerness with which the congregation is responding to this series, and eager to hear it when I don't really know what, it's just called Hearers and Doers, a study in the book. I mean, it's not like we're targeting people's, biggest felt needs issues or any of that. And, or been running a big marketing campaign to try to get people to show up to this or be interested. It's been an interesting thing to me that people are like, I'm ready for this. And I'm like, I mean, did you love the book of James before? Were you like, what is it? But people just seem eager to, we're just going to study this book. And people seem like, I'm here for it. It's been really wild.
I think there's something, we are, you could say, reaping the harvest, or you could just say we're seeing the results of God doing something supernatural behind the scenes, below the surface in people's lives. I think that feels like it's happening potentially worldwide, but like all over the place. You're just going, okay, God's doing something that felt like maybe for a season. I don't know how to mark those seasons exactly, but for a while it felt like
that wasn't the case.
Are people kind of cold for, just not like people even that I know, or I'm not shooting any shots at a person that I know or a church that I know, but you're just kind of looking around going, what's happening? What's God up to?
It's interesting.
Now it's different.
Blake said the other day we kind of re-entered this the space of re-enchantment. Kind of for a while it felt like, and this would have been the kind of probably for me, 2004, 5, maybe even going back as far as 2002, somewhere in there. This idea of, the sense I had was this: people are increasingly, or maybe you could say decreasingly, less interested in church, the Bible. And so we got to do, kind of the thought was, we got to do what we can do to kind of get you interested in this again. And so there was a long period where it was kind of like, how can we package this? How can we frame this series? And, to my dad's credit, my dad was always going to teach the Bible. But for me, part of my kind of maturation, I look at this as kind of immature way of thinking about the scriptures and church and so forth, but it was just like this kind of trying to get people's attention, trying to almost apologetically, like, I know the Bible's kind of boring, but actually, if it could be okay for you. If we'll try to dress it up a little bit, make it where you wouldn't mind it that much. And you kind of felt like you were fighting this sort of uphill cultural battle as people were just sort of moving away from, but a lot of that's changed. And there is this increasing, I think there's a, I don't know if how it's amazing how quickly we kind of pass through this, I don't know what you call it, but this dissatisfaction with just sort of like material stuff, like a life devoid of spiritual meaning, and where people are now seemingly hungry for that again, open to all of that again. I hope to talk about this, but maybe I'll talk about it here. Maybe it'll work its way into a sermon. We'll see. I saw this. So let me back up.
If you're talking about it, it'll work its way into a sermon.
You're right. So my son and I, Francis, went to see Oasis in London several weeks ago, which was an incredible experience. I grew up an Oasis fan in the 90s, and then he just kind of latched onto them as a teenager as well. And so it was something we both shared together. And when the brothers got back together and they were going to tour, and I know for probably a lot of our listeners, Oasis who, but this is a big band, especially in Europe, 90,000 people at this concert. And that was one of 7 straight nights they played at Wembley Stadium. So it's been kind of a cultural event, especially over in Europe. And so anyway, I saw this reel, because I've been watching a lot of videos of just the concert, kind of reliving it all. And I saw this reel that somebody posted that said, how am I supposed to go from this? And it showed the concert. And it's just, all I could describe it as, and look it up if you're curious. It's just joy, celebration, people hugging one another, singing these songs in community. You see people like with their arms raised like this, and they're just like loving life for a couple of hours. And he's like, how am I supposed to go from this? And then it cuts to a shot of like a computer laptop in an office, it's a bland office, to this. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, that's a great question. Because for me as a believer, I'm able to look at that Oasis concert and go, this is cool. It's amazing what I experienced here, but I actually look beyond it. I think this is part of what James is talking about here. I can look beyond this to the end of all things, which, my faith tells me is a gathering of all humanity in celebration, the marriage supper of the Lamb. Like there is a day coming where there will be a celebration that will be eternal, where there'll be no more, like you can forget all your troubles. And that's kind of what that represents. Like people are there and they're not thinking about their responsibilities, and they're not thinking about how much debt they're in, and they're not thinking about how crappy their marriage is right now. They're just singing these songs and they can kind of forget about it. And they have this moment where they can kind of look to something so much bigger than themselves and be caught up in it. And it is like a spiritual experience. The trouble is it's taken away as quickly as it comes. But for the Christian, I'm able to incorporate that night, that whatever good happened there, and it wasn't all good. Like it's tinged with you could say sin, worldliness, brokenness, whatever you want to say. But I can incorporate the good that I experienced there into a much bigger picture and say, this only points me to what is to come. And so it's part of a bigger story that I'm a part of. So it's not like a one-time hit, but a continuation of, what I experience on a regular basis, which is I'm moving toward. I have a friend who is no longer a believer. And he told me maybe a year ago, he goes, I miss worship. I was like, wow, I have never, he just misses having something to worship, to point to look to. And so I think what we're talking about here is I think we're living in a world that is hungry for that. I think people have gotten fed up with, materialism has only gone so far, and we're realizing it doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't point to anything. What is my life about? What am I here for? And I think people are looking for something more.
Absolutely. I think if you look back just sociologically at what's happened in the Western world, can't speak to other continents or developing world countries, but for the West, especially America, we went through a season, if you track back through the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, where everything was sort of this world building. How can I create the right family, get the right house, have the right job? And then there's a slow deconstruction of that when you start to realize that world building isn't fulfilling. It's not lasting. And then on top of that, great article. I wish I could credit the writer from, I think it's the the London Times, wrote an article about faith in Europe, specifically in England, just called Full Fat Faith. And he was just remarking on this.
I haven't read it.
This phenomenon in England of people, especially younger generations, coming to faith and worshiping in church together. And he's just really, sort of trying to get below the surface of this to understand it. And the thing that he's seeing is the structure that has been built for people that's telling them this is how life is best, the good life, whatever you want to call it, is almost entirely secular now. And so people are looking at that going, that's not working. The world isn't better because of this. So where maybe not long ago the rebellious thing would have been to be irreligious.
That's right.
To be secular, to be scientific, to be intellectually honest, and to say listen, if you can't see it, you can't prove it, it's not real. And so if we're going to live in a world that we actually improve, we've got to be pragmatic. And so that was sort of the mainstream guiding thought. And now it didn't take long before that secular construct for people, they see behind it and they go, well, hold on, there's got to be something transcendent. There's got to be something more. And so the thing about the article that I think really struck him was people were just going, just give me, and his words, full fat faith, give me all of it. The morals, the rules, the guidelines. If there's a God and he's real, I want to know how to follow him. Don't just give me platitudes or a Sunday worship experience. I want to know what this is, all of it.
What's funny about all of this that we're talking about is this is ultimately what motivated this series that we're in from the beginning. So the original concept for what we were going to do this fall came from, and I can't find it, but came from a quote from Tom Holland, who is a historian, not the actor, wrote a book called Dominion on kind of the religious, what would you call it, foundation of Western civilization. And Tom Holland's a brilliant guy, not a believer, last I'd heard. But he gets brought into a lot of Christian circles because he's, as a historian, willing to acknowledge that our Western morality, human rights, and care for the poor, and so forth, is rooted in Christianity. And so he kind of unpacks all of that. And one of the things that he said was, look, if you're going to be a Christian, embrace all of it. Embrace the weirdness of Christianity. That don't just kind of hit me with these sort of moral lessons, but embrace the supernatural elements of your faith. Kind of what this guy's saying, full fat, give me the whole thing. And so we were going to do a series called Keep Christianity Weird, where we were going to try to hit some of that stuff, but that was what we didn't feel quite at peace about, but it turns out that it's kind of the same. We're still in the same space. Like, let's really embrace. And honestly, that's kind of James' message. Like, look, if you're going to live this out, then actually live it out.
Yep.
Live what you say. And that's what I find people are hungry for. They're not looking for an alliterative sermon anymore, where it's like all the words start with the same letter in the slogan, or that it rhymes, or that it's catchy, or that it's kind of built on, your own personal stories. I find that people are like, teach the Bible, please. What I'm finding from congregants is like, I'm tired of, I've come from churches where I've never heard anybody preach the Bible like you're preaching it before. Not that I'm some special communicator, but rather they're just not hearing the Bible. They're hearing the Bible light, like a little bit of verse here and there, mostly just kind of a nice, pleasant thought or some,
there was
rhyming
definitely
slogan.
a season where the main communication form that you could even see and imitate was
Absolutely.
a sermon, a point, and then a verse that let me tell you what this idea or principle is built on, and a verse. Colossians, 1:11. I pray that you'd have endurance with joy. And so you go, okay, so that's in the Bible is the overriding thought. It's in the Bible,
Sure.
and you kind of put that stamp on it, and then you go on to your next point. And I think what people are, realizing is something that there have been voices that have been saying this.
Of course.
It's not like we've ever completely lost it, but just that, let the Bible preach.
Yeah.
Let Scripture preach to people, because it will. It's
Yes.
alive, and
Yes.
you don't have to try quite so hard as you think you do to make it fit in people's lives, to do the sales job of the marketing of Scripture. I think
You can just kind of say it.
I think God's
Yeah.
really brilliant.
Yeah.
And he knew from the beginning, listen, these are the words
Yeah.
in this order that need to be said into people's lives.
Sure.
From the very first Christians to whatever the last generation of Christians alive before the day of the Lord, this is what needs to be said. And if you'll say it, it'll hit you in your heart and change your life.
I'm sad to say that a lot of the early sermons that I preached, my method for preaching was, because I didn't read the Bible that much, like here and there. I mean, I wanted to, but it didn't make a lot of sense to me, and because my kind of orientation to the world was people think of this book like I think of this book, which is, it doesn't make any sense, or I don't understand that, or whatever, that I have to kind of figure out a way to make this palatable, to make it so I'm reading books like leadership books, or some psychology book.
Yeah.
And so then
Preaching through the Malcolm Gladwell lens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so it's like, let's take this like principle from Malcolm Gladwell, and then let's try to, like, does that show up in the Bible? Yes. And so you're, of course, so you're trying to backwards engineer everything. And I mean, I'm embarrassed to say that I did that a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think some of that too comes from a place, not necessarily a completely toxic place, right? Which is, I'm trying to reach people who think like I think, and I want you to understand that Scripture is not as irrelevant to the real world out there, and it's sometimes an overreaching of working for Scripture in a way that you don't have to.
I don't know though. I feel like a lot of it is rooted in kind of the belief that Scripture by itself just isn't enough.
Yes.
That we're going to dress this up a little bit. It's an old book, and contains a lot of offensive ideas or things that people just don't get or understand, and they don't really care about half of that stuff. So let's just talk to them about the stuff that they do care about. So what you end up doing, I remember having meetings like this where it's like, okay, sitting down with our team and saying, what are people's biggest needs? And then you write, marriage and money and whatever. And then it's like, okay, now we need to do a series on each of these. And then you go, and here's the problem. Then you go looking through the Bible, like specifically like raising kids. Okay, where's that passage?
Right.
And then you find yourself, and it's like, well, you don't want to use the ones about the rod in Proverbs. So okay, what are we going to talk about now? And then you end up, and so then it's like, all right, I need to find like this Christian expert, or maybe not, who's written about something like this, and let's use all their content and statistics, because that's experts. People want experts, and the science points to this, and then you try to backfill that with a verse or two at the end, and no wonder it was like ineffectual. It didn't work that well. And so what we're finding now is that. And I think not to change, which is, to me, it's come whatever, come what may, this is what we do. Yeah. We preach the scripture. Yeah. And whether it's popular, fine. If it's not popular, fine. This is what we do. And so, but right now there does seem to be this groundswell of people that are going, I think it was Steve, was it Steve Foster, the guy who's a pastor over in Britain? He was just recently talking, I think, about people just showing up to church now with no one's inviting them. Mm-hmm. They're just walking in going, I had a dream. He was like, you'd be amazed at how many people are saying, I've had a dream about the Lord. And they just showed up at church. And so that's happening more and more and more and more. And so there is, I think there is this in the West, this kind of disillusionment with the life that we were all trying to live, and this turning back to, there's got to be something else. Yeah. And so people are showing up. Anyway, I think that makes people prime for kind of the message that the scripture has to offer. So, okay. So we jumped into James this weekend, James 1, 2. How many verses did you cover?
That's a great question. I covered all of one verse last week, which was really exciting. And then this week was 2 through 8. Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't go to 12. Honestly, I didn't unpack 12.
At the end. Yeah.
Okay.
12, is it 12 or 13? Blessed are those who persevere, for they...
That's 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the main theme being kind of steadfastness under trial. Count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you meet trials of various kinds, knowing that, I thought that was interesting. Mm-hmm. This isn't information you don't have. You know this already, that trials or testing produces steadfastness. So I'm curious where you kind of took this. My opening kind of thought as I really started to get into this is, this, testing or resistance, adversity produces something, a character, a quality in you, or there's a perfection that happens in you. Like bodily, we know this is true. When you work out, there is no way to maximize your muscle structure without adversity. Your muscles have to be put under tension, testing, pain, to kind of unlock their potential. You'll never realize what could be possible with a bicep, let's say, unless you put it under, under resistance. It has to be picking up, and that resistance is uncomfortable. If it's not uncomfortable, I would argue you're not doing it right. It has to be pain. There are all sorts of gym phrases that we use: no pain, no gain. Right? No lift, no gift. All of these kind of, have you ever heard that? I know you're into that, Lindsay. That's a big, right? But that's true. Like if I don't.
Somebody's listening to this right now with that on a tank top.
Yeah, absolutely.
While they've got their earbuds in and they're under the bench press and they're going, that's right, Pastor Whit, that's right. No lift, no gift.
Pumping out these reps.
2 more. Yeah, it's true. But that's the feeling you have in the gym, which is like there is not even just a hype to that, although it is hypey in that way, but it's a thing that you tell yourself under the moments of duress.
Absolutely.
That remind you why you're sitting there.
Well, and
why did I show up this morning? Why am I doing this?
Yeah, they would tell you that it's those you ever heard this, like those last 2, those ones that like you want to quit, but those are the ones that make the difference. And people get kind of addicted to that pain. Like it actually becomes like a joy. It's interesting to me. Like in the lifting world, and obviously I'm in that world. No, but 100%. Like you can, people, they enjoy the suffering of it. Yeah. It's painful. What did Tony Horton, we used to do P90X, what he used to say, I hate it.
But I love it.
But I love it. That's I think exactly what James has in mind. Count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you enter into tests or you meet tests of various kinds. Like, this is not enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's painful, but also there can be a thing where you get to this spot where it's like, actually, though, something good's coming from this.
Yeah.
And I recognize that.
Yeah. The way that I started was I just introduced the idea that James is going to do this over and over and over again. He's going to ask you to reverse your realities. And this is why the book of James writes very short, strong, powerful, wise, smart statements. So a lot of times it gets smashed with Proverbs, with wisdom literature, because you go, well, he just said something really smart about wisdom and about life and about your words and about money. And so it can feel a little bit like he's jumping around. But what he's actually doing is far closer to the Sermon on the Mount, which is Jesus says, blessed are the meek, for they'll inherit the earth. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And when you listen to the teaching of Jesus, Jesus is inviting you to reverse your reality from the moment he shows up. A new king is here, a new kingdom is possible. And I'm going to tell you that it's backwards, not because I don't like this world, or I just want you to be different, but because you're going to experience brand new life, real life. You're going to be literally, as it were, born again, and you're going to have the Spirit of God living on the inside of you, and you've spent your entire life walking on the ceiling. You're going to get flipped around. The blood's going to start rushing from your face back down to the rest of your body, and you're going to go, what is this place?
Whole new way of
What
life.
is all this? And so Jesus says the first will be last, and the last will be first. The greatest among you must be your servant. You're going to live by dying. You're going to gain by giving. And over again, he's just flipping everything, what we would say, upside down, but actually he's flipping it right side up.
That's right.
And so James goes, I'm going to do this all through this letter. He's going to ask you to flip it around.
Right.
And so he goes, I think it's fascinating that the four first words, at least the first four words we have written that are a command that were kept in Scripture. There are probably other letters and other things written and things, but the first things that people said, hey, keep that one. There's something God breathed on this. Keep that. Were count it all joy. I think that's fascinating. All the places Jesus could have started to his people scattered all over, count it all joy. It's not, that's not normal, and you know it. In fact, I got a call on Saturday right before church from someone that just said, hey, can we talk for a minute? I want to tell you I just got a cancer diagnosis.
Man.
Can we talk? Would you pray for me?
Oh, man.
And their voices, cracking and the tears are flowing. And as they're talking, they just said, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm so emotional. And I said, well,
what do you mean?
I know exactly why you're so emotional. This is a divergence in the timeline. There was a before and after. You were going this way, not a thought of this in the world. Now you got a whole path ahead of you where you've got to deal with stuff, and there's doctors, and there's all the imaginations you have about what's going to happen. It's not normal. If you contrast that with when our son and our daughter-in-law told us that they were having our first grandchild, which, by the way, I think it's fascinating. Grandparents, I'm finding myself, we own the kid. I've never once called that kid my son's first child. That's our first grandchild. That's mine. That's my first grandchild. It's just funny. But when they told us that they're having their first child, there wasn't a thought in my mind of like, oh, why am I so emotional? I'm so sad. I mean, I felt old for a second, but you just go, this is awesome. That's joy. That's where the joy comes naturally. But over here, when it's trials, that's not normal. And from the very beginning, James is going to say, you live now in a different reality where you have to flip that around. And I think it's really wild that he says, for you know. These are people that didn't have bookshelves of Christian books. Right. But from the very beginning, just meeting Jesus. Yeah. And what is it about Jesus that changed their life? He's alive. He died and he rose again. Death was not the end. He's ascended to heaven. He promised to return. He's seated at the right hand of the Father. I know some things about Jesus from the very beginning of meeting him that should cause me to go, wait a minute. Tough things aren't the end of the story.
That's right.
This is not. That's right. This is not the end. And so there's this picture that James gives us that happens all throughout Scripture. In fact, if you look for it, you'll start to see it, and it's kind of wild. Joy and endurance are just smashed together over and over and over and over and over again. Joy and endurance, joy and endurance, joy and endurance. Fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy set before him
That's right.
endured. That it's not just an invitation to see pain a different way. It's an invitation to put your confidence in the
that's
outcome of the endurance
Yeah, that's
that
it.
produces something in
The
you.
thing is, the way I kind of found myself describing it this weekend is that you're looking through your
Yes.
circumstance,
Yes.
whatever
So good.
cancer diagnosis, that I'm looking beyond that to something that to which my joy is anchored. It's the same thing I was describing with the concert. And I think this is what Christians are called to do. You're called to look beyond the good things in this life and the bad. You look through both of them to their source and their ultimate end. So like yesterday was just a weird day. Elliot and Heather took off for Phoenix. And it happened while I was gone at church. So I'm flying out today to go help him. So I'm going to get to see him, today. But it's still, man, all the feelings like he'd wanted to leave the day before. He wanted to, and he wasn't doing anything to really pack up. It's like, how are you going to get out of here? You've not done anything. And then he wanted to leave at like 5 a.m. and he didn't do anything the night before. So he was, we're going to leave early. They didn't leave till like afternoon. It took him that long to kind of get everything loaded up. But I get done preaching the 11:30 service, and I go back to my phone and I turn it on, after preaching, and these images pop up. One of him standing by his car waving, and one of him hugging his sister, his older sister, Lucy. And I mean, it's hitting me,
Yeah.
and I had, the night before he was at church on Saturday night, and his older brother Francis was there, and Fran thought that was probably going to be the last time that he would see Elliot before he went to college. And so after the service, Fran's leaving, and they hug, and they're hugging each other for a good minute, and there's a lot of tears, and it's an emotional week. Like yesterday was a weird day. It was wonderful preaching, but then going home, and the first thing I did is I just went back and looked at his room, and it's a mess. Most of his stuff's gone, and it's like he's not here anymore. And he's probably spent the last night in that room that he will ever spend in that room. Like that, there's, you ever thought about when you moved out of your house, and it's like that was the last night I don't remember the last night I spent at my home, with my parents. But that was probably the last night he will have spent in the room that he did most of his growing up in.
Yep.
And it hurts.
Yep. Like
yesterday, I'm hurting, and I'm feeling all of this grief, but also there's joy as well, because the grief is, I feel grief because I have joy, because I love this family and I love these kids. And it was just dawning on me yesterday. I'm like, I knew that they would grow up. It's not that I didn't know. And Fran's been married for more than a year, and now Lucy still lives at home, but something about Elliot leaving has been like this signal. And those older three, we have 3 and then 2, they kind of came in 2 different waves. And it's like this signal that those first 3 are grown. Like I told Heather yesterday, I'm like, we raised 3 kids and they're gone.
Yep.
They're adults now. And it's hitting me all at once.
Yeah.
And I feel all of this. But in the midst of all of that, I am, because of my faith, I'm looking beyond it to this idea of family that I know is rooted in the very nature of the Godhead, Father, Son, Spirit. I mean, here even the language is familial language. And I know that what I have, yesterday I was at church, and I came out during the 9:45 service because my daughters, 3 of my daughters were there. All 3 of my daughters, I guess. 2 of them were in the service I was teaching in. And I go stand beside them. I don't often do that, but maybe just everything that was going on yesterday, I felt like I just wanted to be close to my family. And I'm standing beside Zuzu and Lucy and worshiping with them. And I was thinking, this is the end. I am not facing my daughters I am shoulder to shoulder with them. Like that's the end of parenting, is a shoulder to shoulder relationship as we face the Lord together. We will, like, this is the future, us in eternity together, aimed at the Lord. And that's, like, to me, the healthiest sort of parenting kind of place I can get to, is like to recognize this is ultimately, Zuzu is my sister in Christ. I am not forever her father. I will be her brother in Christ. And so I have to, anyway, but all of it, like, that's what I think this is. The call of James, the count it all joy, is perspectival, I think is the word that Dr. Vlachos used. I'm looking through, I look beyond this to what do I know is most true, even though it doesn't feel true right now? What do I know is most true? And whether that's, the justice of the Lord, that he will one day judge, that any injustice will be made right, or that family is forever, or that celebration is the end picture. Like, what do I know? That's why eschatology is so important. The study of the end is knowing not just that, and this is why I would say it's such a great disservice that we spend so much time spent thinking about dates and like when and who, and that doesn't point me to the end picture is what I need more than anything. I need to know that there is a throne in heaven, and that there is one seated on the throne, and that there's a sea of people, a multitude without number, that is oriented at that throne, like that I will be a part of. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm worshiping with my daughter, or at a concert, or when I feel lost because my son's gone to college. I'm reminded that this is not the end, that there is something that all of this points to. And that's what I think James is calling us toward as believers, is like, what you see with your eyes is not reality. That's it. There's another world. That's why he says, hey, let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation. Let that rich brother, be something in his humiliation.
Glory in his humiliation.
Glory in his humiliation. It's like, if you're poor, remember that you're rich. And if you're rich, boast in the fact that you have nothing before, like glory in your humiliation. You are a sinner, as lost as anybody, and Christ found you. Like, there's this, things are not as they appear on the surface.
That's it.
There's this other reality. And I think that is maybe the central organizing principle of the Christian life.
I don't think
you have to look through this.
I don't think there's any accident that James leads with that.
I agree with you. I didn't think about that way, but I think that's exactly right.
Won't make sense if you don't get this perspective.
Yes.
I can talk to you about life and all the other stuff, and we can deal with the stuff that's happening in the church community, and but if you don't have this perspective, if this is not this, like as you said, the central organizing point of how you're living and how you're seeing things, nothing else will cling to this.
So it's interesting because one of the criticisms of the book of James is that it doesn't have a lot of theology in it. But the more I'm studying it, the more I say, I disagree. Yeah. It's practically stated, but it's there all the same. It's as if you would be looking at the Sermon on the Mount and say, very little theology here. But the theology is it's coming at it from instead of starting with abstract ideas and trying to work them out practically, it's starting with practical application that then you can make.
It forces you then to see
make bigger principle,
agreed.
What would it be? Assertions off of what you're doing practically, and you see.
And
that
the criticisms are interesting when you compare the writing to Paul's, when he starts with, but you were dead in your sins,
right?
And so you start going, oh, okay, so Paul is unpacking he's putting the breadcrumbs very close together. He's like saying, okay, so this is exactly how it works. So you can follow this. And I think that's really helpful, especially when you consider the audiences, but for a group of people that were there. Mm-hmm. And we lived in Jerusalem, man. We were there. James just jumps into a different place, I think, in the timeline.
It's interesting. You can come at it from both ways. So Paul is so there's two ways of getting this. Let's sit down in the classroom, let's learn it, and then we'll go live it. That's Paul. Mm-hmm. James is, let's live it, and you will learn it. Mm-hmm. Like, there's two ways. Like, some people, their knowledge of the world or of a particular field is rich, and it came through hands-on experience. They would tell you they didn't have time in a classroom, but lived experience was their classroom. Yeah. Then there are people who go the complete opposite direction. It's like they have little world experience, but it was informed by, or what world experience they have has been informed by what they've learned, and then they take that out and apply it. And I think you could come at it from both directions.
Agreed.
And James seems to be saying, kind of like the Karate Kid, paint the fence, wax on, wax off. You'll learn it as you do it. This will kind of, the order of things and the principles behind what I'm telling you will become apparent as you put them into practice. That seems to be what he's saying.
Yeah, he's a carpenter's son.
Yeah, that's true. He is a carpenter. I didn't think about that. But he is a carpenter's son.
He's got sawdust under his fingernails, and he's used to running around the shop. And it's like, if it doesn't work here, if you can't put this together in the real world, is it even helpful? And so he definitely comes at it from a place that I think is helpful, especially if you're practical.
So I spent kind of the first half of the sermon talking about, and I actually went back to what I taught during Judges. I'm curious how you did it. I talked about testing, producing that which is lacking, and revealing that which is hidden. And I think that's the two kind of, if you take 1 Peter 1 and James 1, they're both talking about the same thing, adversity and how you respond to it. And in both cases, they talk about rejoicing. Peter gives a different reason for why you would rejoice, because the tested genuineness of your faith may be known. So something in you, we want to find out what's in you. And so part of why we go through difficult circumstances is that what's inside of you is revealed. You're justified, as it were. It's like if you were thinking about somebody that you didn't know that well, and you weren't sure if you could trust them, but then you went through maybe a difficult season, and they proved themselves worthy, faithful, a good friend. Now it's like, I totally trust them. They will come through for me. They've shown me. And that's what adversity does, is it kind of proves, when you walk through hardship, it sort of proves how serious you really are. That's what Peter is talking about. And I saw that in James, particularly with the lowly brother, the poor, and the rich. And then he talks about the sun revealing the heat of the sun, withering away kind of everything superfluous, and what's left behind is like, hey, this is what's real. And that reminded me, it was funny, I hadn't thought about this till Saturday, I think it was. I was like, wait a minute, I see the Lord's words here. So you go back to Mark 4, did you get into any of this, or did
Just
you go
a
a different way?
bit,
Okay. Yeah, Mark 4, the parable of the sower, and he talks about the second soil, which is like, it's a rocky soil. It's a shallow soil. The seed of the word goes in, a plant springs up immediately, but then the heat of the sun comes, which is representative of trials, tribulation, hardship, persecution, and that plant withers and dies, and his reason given is because it had no root. And what it seems to me is that trouble, adversity, can kind of do one of two things in a person. You find it to happen in believers. Some, their thin and weak faith gets deep. They have nowhere else to turn. And so they cling to the Lord with everything. Yeah. And it's like they were kind of a marginal Christian before, but now, after having gone through this really hard season, their faith has been deepened tremendously. The tested genuineness of their faith has been revealed. Then there's the opposite that happens. There are people who are very zealous, seems like, excited, loved God, but then their mother, who in their eyes was a saint, gets diagnosed with cancer, and the whole church prays, and she suffers and ultimately dies. And their reaction is, how can a good God let that happen? I had faith, no more. I don't buy it. It's interesting. I think Dr. Vlachos said, the same sun that melts ice hardens clay. And so this sun, this picture of adversity can kind of we don't know which way you're going to go. But when that hardship comes, what's inside of you comes out. You find out.
Yeah.
Did you talk about any of that at all?
Yeah, just a little bit, in the sense that in some of the services I got into it more than others, which is normal for me. But that God, the confidence I have to have is that God is so big that he can both work on what's happening around me, the trial,
Right.
and he can work in me. Mm-hmm. And the challenge is, one of the things that James is teaching is don't get tricked by the trial that the solution or the only outcome is with the problem, which is the vast majority of our prayers, our focus, our faith, our conversations. I need this to change. I need this to change. I need this to change. But notice the target of everything that James is talking about is really not the trial.
Mm-hmm. It's you.
It's what the center of this is you.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
But the thing that I think is so empowering with that is to say, okay, I can't. In fact, the language of how Paul says this, the term count or consider, the first imperative.
Paul or James?
James. The first imperative that James gives here is count or consider it. This Greek word hegiomai, and it does mean figuratively, intellectually, to have a thought. But the idea is to have a leading thought.
Yeah.
Specifically, the word
It means to take control or
often
like dominion.
is to you. It's a word that refers to a leader.
Yes.
Specifically, a person
shows up
in
a
a
lot.
position of leadership.
That's right.
And so what he's saying is control with joy.
Yeah.
One of the
Come on.
lies that trials tell you is that you're out of control.
Yep. That you're powerless.
Why is this happening to me?
It's happening to you. Yes.
And so the first, I think, idea, if you just take that first word of what James says is, you lead your trials, don't let your trials lead you.
Come on.
Don't let you, because the lie is I can't do anything. I'm now marked by this. They did something to me. I failed. I'm now a victim of, or I'm now a person with. And we get that stamp of that thing, the trial on our life, and it now leads us where it wants to go.
That's the thing is, I think one of the most beautiful things that you can find is someone who, through great adversity, did not let the circumstance, the suffering. Does it affect them? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some folks, I think Dr. V was talking about, I forget who it was, someone that's like, lifelong wheelchair kind of thing. Like this is not something that's gone away.
Yeah.
You live with it every day.
Yeah.
But it is not going to be the thing.
Right.
I am not going to let this
the picture is not
stamp me.
Yes, the picture is not you can control your trial.
Yes.
The picture is you can control you in the trial.
Yes.
And that's, I think, really empowering to go, okay, so I'm in prison.
Yes.
Why don't we just start a worship service?
Yes.
Then they did. Paul and Silas worship in prison. We get the benefit of the punchline. The walls fall. They run out. Paul and Silas don't know that. That's the end for them.
Yeah.
Huh? Didn't think this is where it ends. How about you? Huh? Isn't he worthy? Isn't he worthy? There is no one. They're just worshiping Jesus. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. And it's the end.
Yeah.
Until it's not.
Yeah.
And then they go, it's not the end. You think that guy's supposed to get saved? Probably. That's probably why it's not the end. Bro, you want to get baptized? Let's take care of some eternal business. I can't control the trial. I'm not promised. And the first Christians were not promised. In fact, they were guaranteed. Some of you will die.
Yeah, most.
Yeah. At prison, persecution. You're going to get evicted by landlords that don't want Christian renters. You're going to get fired by bosses that don't want Christian employees. It's going to be tough. But you lead, govern, judge your life with joy. And the joy is not a happiness. The joy is not an emotion. The joy is a perspective that says, wait a minute, God is at work on two things at the same time. He is at work at redeeming everything eventually. Yes. To tell a Christian God's at work on the trial can accidentally promise them that God will unwind everything visibly soon.
Yes.
That's not always the promise, but ultimately he redeems everything.
And I think that's been unfortunately for too many Christians, the focus, and maybe the focus of the preaching that they've heard and the books that they've read and whatever, is on circumstances.
Yeah. The problem with circumstantial answers, especially immediate circumstantial answers being the only outcome, and there's a tension here that's worth talking about, I'm sure, but that has like a bunch of layers to it. the problem with circumstantial immediacy to my faith is that it unplugs the very thing that James says needs to be at work in me, which is endurance.
Steadfastness, exactly.
So I have to have endurance in order for something to happen in me. So endurance almost always implies a time element.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Endurance is an endurance. If it's not torture. If I go, hey, I'm gonna poke you with this needle once. It's like, fine. I'm gonna do that 1,000,000 times over the next 10 years. Whoa, hold on. Now that requires an endurance of me that's totally different. So the problem is for believers to read James honestly is to sit down and to say, okay, hold on, what is he saying here? He's saying that I have to have an assumption of a couple things. Things aren't going to work out immediately, and I'm missing something internally.
Yep.
This is a tension in the Christian life. I am complete in him. Grace has done its work on me. My salvation is complete. The cross was sufficient. The tomb is still empty, and Jesus is still Lord. I am completely saved, born again, made a new creation in Christ. Old things have passed away. The work of salvation is done, and I'm a construction zone.
That's right.
If I don't view it that way, to go, okay, there's something that this is going to do in me, then I lose. The elements of joy start to wither right before my eyes. This has to happen quick. That's not the promise. The promise is this is probably going to take a while. For the perfection of my faith is going to be an endurance, lifelong project. Okay, that adds an element of joy because I have a certainty that I can do this.
It's interesting though too, because like we've been saying, looking beyond, look through the trial at the joy. I think of Hebrews 12.
Yep.
Who for the joy set before him. It's
joy,
out in front.
Joy and endurance
it's out
always
in front,
smashed together.
Past that cross. So I walk through this to that joy. That's what I'm aiming at. I'll endure this suffering now because I'm aiming at
the way
that
I said that is joy. Joy is the fuel of Christian endurance.
Yeah.
But not that I enjoy the trial.
No.
But that there's a joy.
So the interesting language that James uses, I didn't have a whole lot of time to get into it. I might have touched it just briefly in one service. But the what he says at the end, that you may be perfect and complete. This is not like a kind of like a, how would I put this? Like a hypothetical perfecting, like, oh, you're getting better. It's literal perfection that you will not achieve. It will not happen to you in this life.
Yep.
But that there is a perfection that's coming. So ultimately what he's describing is an eschatological reality, meaning at the end, there is a true state of perfection and completeness, lacking nothing. You will not lack anything. And that'll only ever be done at the end of all things, when the Lord finally kind of consummates the kingdom. But for now, I'm moving toward that,
and it has to be in front of you.
Yes.
I'll say this often: pain without purpose is punishment.
Yeah.
Endurance, by its very nature, implies that there's something worth holding on for.
That's right.
There's something on the other side of this that I'm enduring for.
Who did I hear say this recently? It's like someone said it's unbelievable what a human being can endure, the pain they can go through if they have a reason for doing it. It's unbelievable what you can endure.
I told our church, so I'm going to give you the strangest instruction a pastor's probably ever given you. But I'm going to tell you that if you're going to follow Jesus, you have to become a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, yeah.
So if you know a conspiracy theorists get a weird rap, right? If you have a conspiracy theorist in your life, they're the ones that are, showing you the videos that the moon is actually an alien constructed satellite. There's metal underneath, and it's a satellite. And if you look closely through a telescope, you can see the red spots on the moon because it's rusting, and like it's a satellite.
Is this real?
This is a conspiracy. Oh yeah. And so right, the Earth is flat. Aliens built the pyramids, right? Whatever the thing is, and I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, although I've got a couple that I do think are fascinating that we could get into if you want. But I do believe in one big conspiracy, and here's what a conspiracy theorist believes. Whatever the conspiracy theory you have is, you believe this. They're not telling you everything.
Yeah.
And I believe in one big conspiracy. And I think you have to as a Christian. Your trials aren't telling you everything.
Yeah.
Your world's not telling you everything.
Yep.
Your flesh isn't telling you everything.
Yep.
Your trials aren't telling you everything. And I believe that there is a Romans 8:28 conspiracy.
Yep.
Somehow, God is working all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And if I can see life that way, there's a joy that's produced in me that allows me to endure, that completes something in me.
You know what I think? It's actually, there's a steadfastness that's produced in you that coexists with joy. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, I think there is joy, but I think what's built in you is a strength now that I did not. That's what steadfast is. I can bear up under this.
Yes.
You're not going to crush me.
Yes.
I'm not going to quit.
Come on.
I'm not going to break down here.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm moving through this. It may take my life. It may not work out the way that I'd hoped that it would. What can you take from me?
That's it.
Where am I going but to my Savior? I know the end of this story. And then you become like a durable person with a durable identity and a durable joy.
Come on.
Because you can pass through. You're looking through. Count it all joy. That's what he's talking about. Okay, so on the other side of this, I think, for the sake of time, we ought to get into this second bit, which is really what was fascinating to me. If any of you lacks wisdom.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to I didn't even get into it because I just didn't even have the time. But the link is there in the wording. So he says that you may be perfect and complete.
Lacking
nothing. But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives generously and without reproach.
So this is where James feels a little bit like Proverbs, right? It feels like he's switching subjects.
Yep.
But I think if you've lived any amount of time at all, you know that those two things almost have to be smashed together.
Yeah.
Wisdom and trials.
Well, it's interesting. Heather said this too, that the Sermon on the Mount is probably a series of sermons, a series of things that the Lord talked about quite a lot. And so there's probably a lot more that got kind of cut out that is distilled down to its basic thoughts. So when you read it, it feels like bouncing here, bouncing there. Is there a through line? Yes. But it's the distilled thoughts. And I think that maybe, James he's not an author as much as he's a preacher.
Right.
And so you're getting probably the concentrated versions of bigger thoughts. And here they are. You could memorize them. You could remember these things. And so if it feels like he's bouncing a little bit, it's probably because you're missing some of that language that, like, when we preach it, where it kind of naturally stitches it together. But it is, the connection is there, which is you're taking this perspective. I want you to count it all joy. How on earth do I do that? I think is the question. Like, naturally, if you're asking me to do that, how could I possibly look at what we're facing right now and say, well, there's some cause for joy here. Yeah. How? And James would say, you lack something.
Yep.
What you need is wisdom.
Yep.
Wisdom being the perspective from above, God's point of view. It's like you don't see everything, and you're not going to see everything. So why you need wisdom is to see and understand the world as God sees it. That's what wisdom is. It's not knowing everything.
Right.
It's not being this wise sage where these pithy sayings come out of your mouth all the time. It's actually knowing what the will of God is and then doing it. That's what wisdom is. It's understanding God's perspective and then acting in accordance. I mean, that if you just stop and think about it practically, wisdom would be acting the most in keeping with reality. A wise person would know what reality is, and then they would act in accordance with that reality. A fool is someone who would act out of sync with reality.
Yeah.
Their actions would not match up to reality, but a wise person gets reality. They see how things really are, and they respond accordingly.
Yeah.
So if you are lacking wisdom, it's what you're needing is perspective. Help me see perspective. I mean, if you think about it, it's like even in the most practical sense, should I choose this job, or should I stay in this relationship or get out of this relationship, or what do I do with my kid here? If you could, like Doctor Strange, go into the future and see every outcome of every choice that you could possibly make, what would you be gaining? perspective. You would like get up above everything and you would go, okay, this is where that leads. I don't want to choose that path then.
Right.
I'll choose this one. So when you're asking for wisdom, what you're asking for is, who has that view? God does.
Yep.
He can see things.
Yep.
So he can give you the wisdom that you need to respond to this in the right way. In other words, it's like if you knew what I would knew,
Yep.
then you would choose what I'm telling you to choose.
Yep.
But so there's first of all this, let him ask God who gives graciously, generously, without reproach, and it'll be given to him. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea,
Yep.
driven, tossed by the wind.
Yep.
Let not that man suppose he will receive anything from God. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. To me, that was the interesting part. I really wrestled with that section. Specifically, what does he mean by faith and doubt? What does it mean to doubt? I couldn't figure out why you would say, God, give me wisdom. Never mind. I don't want it. I couldn't figure what would be the advantage in that. And then you could say, well, what we're talking about is someone who just doubts that God would give it. Okay, fair enough. But having questions about who God is in the midst of trial and adversity and difficulty feels biblical to me, because I look through the Psalms and I see a lot of questioning of God. God, where are you? God, why are you allowing the wicked to prosper and thrive? Meanwhile, the righteous are being trampled underfoot. Or where are you? Why are you so quiet? Why are you not responding? Come on. Like all of this is in there. Job questions God, and it said of Job that in all this he does not sin. The Lord himself on the cross cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? It doesn't seem to me that having questions about what is happening right now before God and wrestling those things out, if anything, I feel like that qualifies as faith. I'm willing to trust you with what I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I was really struggling with this idea of kind of the traditional idea of faith and doubt being that if I have even just the slightest shred of hesitation in me that you might respond in goodness, then I can expect nothing from God. Do I think that could ultimately arrive at a place where that kind of question could arrive at a place where you would be actually doubting? Yes. Like I totally think that can happen. We can use our kind of intellectual questions to sort of keep God at a distance. But I think there's also a lot of honest wrestling with God that actually, interestingly, leads to a closer relationship with him. So I found myself really struggling to try to understand what that meant.
I think that's really worth just parking on for just a second, because I think this section, when James talks about trials and receiving from God, both of these areas are places where a lot of Christians experience shame and guilt and insecurity.
Wow.
As though, and I think it's important on both notes to disarm a little bit of that, to go, James says a really important word about trials. He says when you encounter trials.
Yep.
Trials don't make you a JV Christian.
Yep.
He doesn't say if. Jesus in John 16 says, in this world you will have trouble. Peter, when he talks about trials, he says, when you encounter a fiery trial, don't think something strange is happening to you.
Yep.
It's really important that Christians don't allow condemnation to enter into their thinking when they go through a trial. James does not spend any time about the origin of trials.
Nope.
You got yourself into this. You were a moron. You were an idiot. You did something you shouldn't do. It's your sin. It's your fault.
Sometimes, but not always.
But what James says is the answer isn't in getting in a time machine and going back and having a complete understanding of how you got there,
right,
in order to move forward.
Yes.
He doesn't even say you have to have complete confession of your sin in order to move forward. He says turn to God. Ask for wisdom, even in the problems you created. God gives wholeheartedly wisdom. So you have to unplug the shame of the trial itself.
And without reproach, it's interesting because you almost, if the trial is of your own making, then you would expect God to look at you and say, "Yeah, well, I'm not giving you any wisdom. You made this mess. Get yourself out."
Yes, there is a wholeheartedness to the way God gives, and so the reason I'm rewinding to that is that's a really important part of the picture of the second part.
Really,
God is wholeheartedly giving wisdom, and there's no obstacle between you and the giving of God's wisdom. The second place we experience the shame and the guilt, or the fragile feeling of this thing, which I think is such a shame because James is trying to build a construct of strength and confidence in God, not to give you this feeling that we often get with doubt and faith, which is, I'm walking on a tightrope of faith. And if I have thoughts of doubt, I fall off, and God says, I'm not catching you.
That's exactly right.
You're on your own.
That's exactly how I
You
put
walk
it.
that tightrope.
A lot of people, that's what they think.
That's not what James is saying.
Yes.
James is not saying there's no place for intellectual doubt.
Yes.
Or wrestling through things. What he points to is a really important picture. He says, when you're double-minded.
Yes.
Which is, I think, in fact, we had some conversations this week that really helped me unpack this, so I don't want to get too far ahead of you. But
go for it.
I think that's where the fragileness, I think, happens for people to go, okay, shoot. And so much of that pressure gets put back on the Christian, which is not the point of this. The point of this is you lack something.
So then when you pray for a specific result, and then that specific result doesn't happen, then the shame that you feel is, I must have had doubt.
Yeah.
I prayed, but there was a little doubt in there, and somehow, but if I had, so basically what people come up with is that faith then becomes this spiritual force that's like the Force from Star Wars, that if I'm really pure, then I can, manipulate my world through my spiritual power of faith. Faith activates God, all this type stuff. Yeah, but not in the way that you think. And so the counter to that is doubt, which is like this other negative spiritual force that if I allow that to creep in at all, it's gonna like undercut my spiritual power of faith.
Yeah, so I'll probably get these ideas a little bit out of order and how we maybe have talked about them or even preached about them. But the thing for me that I felt really strongly this weekend for people was I want to unplug that shame from you for a second. So let me tell you, in the kingdom of God, if you're laying in your bed at night and you're having an intellectual wrestling, is God going to fix this? I don't know if he will or if he does in this life, and what if this lasts this whole life, and what if on this side of eternity I don't get healed or I don't, and you're wrestling with those things. Set yourself free from the condemnation that is what James is talking about here.
Yeah.
Here's what James is saying. Don't be double-minded. And in Scripture, if you read through the story of the people of God following by faith an invisible God they cannot see, always in Scripture, obedience trumps thoughts.
Yep.
You will have thoughts. And we talked about this earlier this week, but Naaman was the example I used.
I use him too.
Here's a guy.
He begrudgingly obeys.
He's in a trial. He needs wisdom.
Yes.
What does he do? He goes to the man of God.
Yep.
Help me.
Yep.
What does the man of God give him? Wisdom.
Yeah.
What does he say about the wisdom? Huh?
Stupid. Yeah. Doesn't make any
come
sense.
on. We have better rivers. But what did he do?
He obeyed.
Got in the river and dipped 7 times.
So was he healed?
Yes.
Did he have questions? Yes. Did he do it begrudgingly? Yes. How did he get that answer? I thought he was doubting because he obeyed.
Obedience trumps thoughts.
So I would say weak faith in a strong object is better than strong faith in a weak object.
I'm telling you, it is the object of the faith that matters. That's it. And so Paul tells the Corinthians, take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts are going to be there. You're going to have wild and crazy thoughts fly through your head. And if you sit there and you think, oh crud, I just short-circuited this thing. Yes. I pulled the power plug on this because I doubted, or I had a bad day, or I woke up one morning feeling like I don't want to keep trying. I feel like I don't have it today. Your obedience is the thing that God is not just looking for, but it's the thing that puts you in the place to be following God. And this is why the picture of being double-minded is contrasted with being wholehearted. God is asking you, and here's the.
That's a great thought.
There is no obstacle to God giving. God is giving. When he says,
Yes.
don't be ask in faith without doubting, for that person's like a wave tossed by the wind. Let not that man suppose what?
He will receive.
Receive. He doesn't say, let that man think that God stopped giving.
Yeah.
God is giving. There's no obstacle. God is fully giving. In fact, the reassurance that he gives in verse 17 is God is the Father of lights with whom there is no shadow or variation due to change. God's not changing. He's giving. You need wisdom? There's no grudge. There's no spreadsheet in heaven that he's going, well, let's see how you did this.
That's so good.
Wisdom. He's giving. No obstacle to the giving of God. The obstacle is with my receiving.
That's right.
So I then cannot receive what God is giving. How does that happen?
Yep.
By being the opposite of what God is. God is wholehearted in his giving. The question is, am I wholehearted in my receiving?
That's true.
Where the picture in the language and what we studied helped me so much. With James is saying, don't be two-faced.
Yes.
Not like two-faced when a friend says something to your face and then lies about you behind your back.
But that is what it is, because I'm putting forward one version of myself, but there's another version of myself that is acting with a different motive and a different
that's where
target.
the helpful thing for me was to think of it two-faced, but said a slightly different way. Don't be Mr. Facing two ways.
Yes.
And that's where I think that picture of that statue helped me so much. Two-faced, one body, two faces facing opposite directions. Half of me facing toward God and half of me facing this way.
So when you start going down that road mentally, it's not like immediately your mind goes to, wait a minute. I remember Jesus saying something about you cannot serve
two masters.
Two masters. Yeah. Now you start going, oh, so this is making sense. We're not just talking about questions. We're talking about differing allegiances.
Yep.
We're talking about someone who's saying they want to honor God, serve Him, take His wisdom into their counsel, do what He says, but then they're not going to do it. And that's what it is to be a doubter.
That's where I think Motier's quote helped me too on that, is to go, if you were to take that picture of the statue, if we were to take that picture of the statue and go, okay, so one face is facing God. And I think we know that part of our life. We hit the thing and we go, God, help.
Absolutely.
We know that part. Well, how would part of me be facing the other way? Well, I think it's helpful to go, I think there's probably several things that are reasons for different people, different personalities, different seasons of our life that would cause us to face that way. One is what Matier was talking about, is we numb ourselves and we medicate ourselves. So we go to God and we pray, but then at the end of a tough day, when we don't really want to face the reality of life, and so we medicate, we numb, and we're unable to hear what God is saying because we don't want to face the hard thing.
Yep.
And so God might have a hard truth or a direct truth or a corrective truth, but man, I just want to numb, I want to medicate, I want to, whether it's substances or distraction, I just don't want to face the hard thing. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes I pretend like it doesn't exist, or I try to manage it instead of actually turning and wholeheartedly facing this and go, God, no matter how hard it is, I want the wisdom that's going to fix this.
Where I see it is maybe we have folks come to us for wisdom, pastoral counsel,
and that's the other. I think that's another reason, right? Which is you are asking, but you don't really want to hear.
You don't really want to hear. I've run into this all the time. We're not really interested. People want to gripe about their problems.
Yeah.
This is what's going on, but they don't actually want an answer. There's no self-examination there. There's no humility there that could take in. Like basically, all there is an assertion of reality. Yeah. This is how things are.
Yep.
Period.
Or what they've already decided.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the trouble. It's like God can't give to someone who doesn't want to receive.
That's it.
You can't. And I remember this with our kids, like, and friends too, different people in your. We've all had this experience. You can plainly see what's going on with someone. There's whatever it is, and you know it's there, but you also know they aren't willing or ready to hear it.
Yeah.
You could tell it to them, but you know they're not actually going to, it wouldn't do them any good. And probably just get mad at me. Or maybe with your kids, you try to tell them and it's like, nope, this is why, fine. And they can't hear it right now because they're not in a place to hear it. That's what I think he's talking about being a double-minded man, is that you can't receive. Yeah. Your receiver is cut off. Your ears don't work. Don't think you're going to get anything from God because you're filled with a dual allegiance. That is the description of doubt. I think it's important that we take James at what he says and not apply meanings to words that we think they mean from what maybe our experience has been, or what we've been maybe previously taught, or where he literally describes it. You're like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. What does that mean? You're driven by another power. There's a circumstance. There's something here that's pushing you around. You can't hear from God, neither could you obey him, because you're being carried around by some other thing. In this case, the picture is the wind.
Yep.
And so until you can kind of come to a place where you say, okay, I'll trust you, even begrudgingly. So the example that I used, I don't think we ever got into this, but I used it in all of the services because it ended up being such a really helpful example. So D.A. Carson has this. You can find it's a pretty big clip of his.
The Exodus?
Of the two men at
the Passover?
Yes.
Yeah, I used it in a couple of the services.
You did? Did you even know that I used it?
I don't think so, no.
Amazing. Because it just popped into my mind on Saturday night. I'm like, oh, here's a great example of two. So for those that maybe didn't hear it, two Israelite men, night before the first Passover in Egypt. And one says to the other, did you hear what Moses said is going to happen tonight? The death angel's coming through, and firstborn of every household is going to be killed. But if we take the blood of a lamb and we brush it on the doorpost and on the lintel, we'll be passed over. And the other one says, do you really believe that? You think that's actually going to happen? He goes, yeah, absolutely, I do. I think that I trust Moses. I've seen how God's worked through him. I believe that if we do that the death angel will pass over. Both men go away and brush the blood on the doorpost, and one does it begrudgingly, and the other does it just wholeheartedly, like, yes, I totally believe it. And then he asks the question, which of them will be saved? And it's not a trick question. The answer is both. And you know it's both. Why? Did his questions prevent God's promise from coming true? No. What made the difference? Obedience.
That's it.
Is that what faith is? Yeah. Faith is belief in action. It's a will. It's a trust that, you know what, I believe that you will do what you've said. So I'm gonna go ahead and try. And even if you begrudgingly, Tim Keller puts it like this. He talks about two people on a ice, frozen over lake. And let's say that they're standing at the edge, and this lake is frozen like really deep. And the one is like, we can totally walk across this lake. It's like the ice is like a foot thick. We'll be fine. And the other one's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that it'll hold me. Finally, he convinces him. He walks out on that ice. Does the ice hold him? Yeah, because it's strong enough to hold him. Now imagine that ice is very thin, and the one guy is like, I have complete confidence. I absolutely believe this ice will hold me. He walks out on the ice. What happens? He falls through. Why? Because it was thin. The object of his faith was weak. He was putting his trust in something that could not support him. The problem is not your belief, how much you believe. You can believe it all you want, but if the thing that you're putting your belief in is weak, then it doesn't matter. It won't work. So weak faith in a strong object gets the job done, but strong faith in a weak object produces nothing. And I think that's what James, like when he's talking about faith and doubt, ultimately, I think for him, what it comes down to is, but will you act?
Yeah.
Will you trust? Don't just tell me, show me. And that's what we're going to find as we get deeper into this whole letter, into the book, into chapter 2. Of course, he's going to make that explicitly clear. Yeah. Faith without works is dead. You talk about it, but you're not actually doing it. And I think what happens, and unfortunately, and I say this with all due respect to folks who kind of come from this kind of tradition, I get it, but there's so much emphasis on words. Ooh, don't let that word come out of your mouth, as if having I'm wondering about this, somehow spoils the faith that's going on the inside of you. Rather, what I find, biblically speaking, is that like the gentleman that said, if you can heal, who was it? I can't remember. He said to the Lord, if you can heal, maybe it was his servant, son, daughter, I forget who. Or maybe it was even him. And the Lord's like, if? Mm-hmm. I absolutely, basically, if you have faith, believe it or whatever. I forget exactly how, like, I can do it. And the guy goes, I believe, help my unbelief. It's like, okay, I'll trust you. But he had questions, and he doesn't chastise for his questions. He's challenged to say, like, yeah, I can. Absolutely. Do you not realize who you're putting your faith in? And that's the confidence to me that we have as Christians, is whatever life may bring our way, our confidence, our quote-unquote faith, is in a strong object.
Yeah.
One way or the other, whatever the outcome may be in this life, our confidence is in a strong object. And even if you have questions about, I don't know, what I would encourage you to do, I was encouraging a friend with this recently, is just like, stop saying, I don't know if I believe this anymore. I don't know if I buy into the. Stop saying that. Say, I have some questions. I'm wrestling with this, and fumble forward with the Lord and watch and see what he does. Like, he will meet you there. Even when you feel like you're not doing it all right and you don't have it all figured out. Absolutely. Like, God can meet you in that place. Yeah. And biblically speaking, I find that he often does.
Yeah. I think both faith and doubt have momentum. And I think if you don't doubt your doubts as much as you doubt your faith, then your doubt is going to have a momentum that feels so much stronger and so much more tangible than your faith in an invisible God, because you can see the visible reasons why doubt might be true. But just to be willing to take your doubts to God as much as your faith and say,
that's exactly right.
I don't know even why I feel this way. Or I'm not sure why I'm so sure that God won't show up. I think part of that is, we talked earlier about the layers of some of this. One of the sublayers of endurance, I think, is the counterbalance of expectation in a supernatural God that is an important counterbalance in the Christian life, to go, yeah, I'm going to endure. But I also believe that God just shows up and breaks through.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to continue to seek him. I'm going to continue to serve him. And I'm going to continue to believe, even in the process of endurance, that God can still show up and he can still break through. Does my desire to manufacture that make it happen? I think that there's a expectation in the life of a Christian that gains ground, and it grows in a Christian community when a whole bunch of people are believing this together. In fact, I heard John Tyson talking earlier about why miracles happen.
I thought that was fascinating.
In developing countries far more than they happen in Western countries.
Yep.
And
where Nazareth is basically what he said.
It's tough because we're the place where there seems to be a corporate unbelief, even when there can be a strong personal belief. There seems to be a corporate unbelief,
and he could do no miracles there.
That says this is all you've just got this so figured out and so pre-programmed and so preset that there's no real expectation. But when there's a whole community, and in some cases whole cities and whole gatherings of people that are crying out to God, there's probably likely going to be more space for God to do those things. And so I think the counterbalance that we have to have is, I'm going to hold on, I'm going to endure, but it's we also serve a God that created all things and is a miracle working God and still works in amazing, wonderful ways. And so I have to hold both of those. And in the same way, I have to hold endurance and bold expectation. I have to hold faith and doubt, and be able to go, okay, when I doubt, that doesn't freak me out. It doesn't buckle me under, but I can take those to God. As one of my friends says, you pray out your doubts with God, or your doubts will prey on you. Doubts pressed down on the inside are just going to eat you alive. But the Psalms gives us a different picture. Pray those out with God. Take them to God. Say, God, why? I don't understand. And when and how long? And watch how your expression of doubt to God actually turns into a beautiful expression of faith and worship. I trust you enough to bring you the stuff I don't understand.
Absolutely. And that's, I think sometimes people think that if I have that real faith comes when I've answered all of my questions. And in my own personal experience, my faith has been strengthened not when all of my questions have been answered, but when I've been willing to take the doubts that I've had and the questions that I've had and to say, and I still have them, by the way, they're still there. But here's what I would say is like Christianity is the best of all the options. Do I sometimes go, why does this happen? Yes. Do I sometimes go, I don't know how to explain this? Yes. But when I kind of back out of my Christian belief for a second and start looking for other possibilities to explain who I am, where I come from, it's like the end road of all of that is devastating. So what I look at is I go, well, like what I have with my Christian faith is like a way of looking at the world that covers almost everything, but a few questions over here that are on the fringe. And I go, well, that's pretty good. Like that's the best way forward. And I trust God with the bits that don't, like the puzzle pieces that I can't make fit. And I think that's a great place to be.
I think it's so important for Christians to remember we serve an interstellar God.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you don't serve this earthbound, time-bound God. You serve an infinite God that is so far beyond what we have the capacity to understand right now. If as one preacher said, if all that who God is the vastness of the Pacific Ocean, and who you are is a Capri Sun. You can't expect
Capri Sun.
You can't expect to fit one in the other.
Yeah.
And to go, oh, I get it all.
Yeah.
No, you don't, and neither do I. And embracing part of that mystery is what allows me to remain as the creation and worship the Creator and go, okay, I'm going to trust you.
Yeah.
And knowing that there is this eternal journey into the infinites of God to go, we're going to discover more and more for all time to come. And I don't have to worry about what I don't know now because this isn't the end, and I will know more.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. So good. Great conversation today.